Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mailbox for the 19th of September 2012. My name is TotalBiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of community interaction, gaming discussion, and all that good stuff. You can email in mailbox@cynicalbrit.com, that's mailbox@cynicalbrit.com, with topics for future shows. The game in the background is Torchlight 2 once again, as we come towards its release, and yes, I'm still loving it. It's very, very good indeed. You will get a fairly full opinion on it over the next couple of days, I think. Alright, so there wasn't a mailbox yesterday. Why was that? The main reason was, once again, we didn't really get the kind of questions that I can answer. Either they're very, very specific, I just don't have the experience to answer them, or the stuff that we've already answered before, or they already have an obvious answer. It's like, here's this really, really evil thing that this company did. What do you think about it? It's evil. Next question. I think that some of these questions are designed to provoke rants and things like that, but it doesn't really give good content, in my opinion. So, I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. If it keeps going this way, then I might have to put Mailbox on hiatus and maybe rethink the concept, because perhaps it's a little bit flawed in the sense that people are going to come to the channel, they're new to the channel, they end up asking the same question that was answered 3 or 4 months ago, and yeah, it becomes very repetitive as a result. So I'm thinking maybe we change it around, maybe make a new show of some sort, but I am going to take some questions from Twitter over the next few minutes. This has already happened, by the way, so don't tweet at me right now, but I'm going to grab some questions from Twitter. Warfexian's question is, what do you think about Halo 4? Well, I honestly haven't followed the Halo series all that much. I played a couple of parts of it, and quite frankly, I didn't enjoy it. And I think it really comes down to the fact that I just don't care about console FPS, and I view console FPS as a separate subgenre of first-person shooters. The reason is that they are designed with the limitations of a console in mind. I'm not talking about the technical limitations like hardware power. No, I'm talking about the controls. That's perhaps the most important thing, and it's really, really important to highlight that, because not a lot of people really seem to understand that current FPS design is as a result of consoles being the dominant platform. When consoles weren't the dominant platform for first-person shooters, there were different kinds of shooters available, and more often than not, you didn't necessarily get the best ports to the console. In fact, there were many consoles that actually struggled to get a good version of Doom, and there weren't all that many that managed to pull it off properly, as well as versions of Quake, for instance. Saturn Quake is probably viewed as the best console version of that game, but even that wasn't particularly good. Quake 2 for the PlayStation, for the N64, wasn't particularly good either, and it really came down to the controller. The controller limits you in a number of ways. The first way is in accuracy. You cannot be as accurate with an analog stick as you can be with a mouse. It's just not possible. An analog stick doesn't move in the same way as a mouse. It doesn't have the kind of accuracy, the kind of DPI that you would get from a mouse. So, as far as I'm concerned, you can't really argue that a controller could ever be more accurate than a mouse in its current form. So, you've got to build the FPS with less of an emphasis on accuracy. Either that means that weapons are very much spray or have big AoE, or that the game actually has auto-aim built into it, which is a mechanic I really find very, very unrewarding. The second problem is lack of buttons. It means that inventory management becomes very, very difficult. If I want to switch between 10 different weapons on my keyboard, that's very easy. 1 through 10 on the top of the keyboard, and there are many other keys that can be bound to different weapons. Whereas on a console, you can't really pull that off. Why do you think Halo only allowed you to carry 2 weapons? It's because switching between those 2 weapons on a console is very easy. It's just one button press. You know that the button press is either going to get you one weapon or the other. So that's all you really need to worry about. And when it comes to using weapons akimbo, you've got those left and right triggers that can be used to fire left, right, or both guns at once. So you have a really big limitation as to how many guns you can have. I really hate that, because it severely limits what you can do with the actual enemy encounters. The game has got to be designed in such a way that your 2 guns will deal with what's coming on just fine, or the game will give you the gun that you need just before the actual encounter, and that is so incredibly contrived. I absolutely hate it. This also has other fairly severe effects. It means that ammo must be plentiful, and in that respect, you actually kill the exploration aspect of a lot of old-school FPS. Old-school FPS allowed you to get access to very powerful weapons quite early on in the game, but you wouldn't be able to find the ammo for them unless you really hunted around. Remember, able to get the RPG on level 1 of Duke Nukem 3D? What a crazy idea. But the point is, you can't find the ammo for the RPG unless you really look around the place, and you couldn't find power-ups and things like that either. I mean, what's the point in having mega health when you have regenerating health in a modern FPS? What's the point in having hidden weapons and ammo when you can only carry 2 weapons at any given time? So everything about console FPS is the antithesis of what I enjoy from first-person shooters, being a person that really adored games like Quake, Doom, and Duke Nukem 3D. So as far as I'm concerned with Halo, I have no interest in playing it. My attempts to play Halo always resulted in the same thing: frustration at the way that the game was designed, because it was designed with consoles in mind. I don't even care if the game's the ugliest thing on the planet. I still have to use a controller, and that controller is still going to influence the entire structure of the game, and as a result, it is not enjoyable for me. So that's my opinion on Halo. Here's one from Toiler that says, do you think games need to show more information for number crunchers? Without question. Games that show an awful lot of data and games that give an inherent understanding of how the game works to the player are far, far superior than those that don't when it comes to making sure that the player does not get frustrated and angry. I think the more you hide, the worse it can get, and it's essential, for instance, for a game like Dark Souls to actually show this kind of data, to be very, very honest about how much damage something does, about what stats do, and things like that. A game that I praised for this, and rightfully so, was Blacklight Retribution. I feel that it creates an aura of fairness surrounding a game that is otherwise very much your standard level up, unlock parts, this guy has a more advanced weapon than you. When you can very clearly see the comparison between all of the stuff that's in the store, and then look at your own gun and say, actually, this is alright, this actually works pretty well, this is nicely balanced standard gear, and everything then becomes something of a side grade, then you feel that the game is actually fair, and you would be right. It also allows you to make extremely informed decisions. It also allows for players to go really into the nitty-gritty when it comes to balance. It's very difficult to talk balance without hard numbers. You simply cannot do it without significant research, and even then, if it's original research, then you've got to say, well, these are the numbers that I think the game actually uses, but I could be wrong. Now, if that data is all available there from the very start, that allows people to make better arguments when it comes to balance. And it also silences a lot of balance whining as well. It's difficult to argue with statistics, and it's very difficult to argue with facts, of course, as it very well should be. So if you're able to present numbers and say, look, you are wrong, here is the official number on this issue, then you reduce the balance whining quite significantly. So I feel that more games need to do that. They need to allow their players to become informed. They're going to try and get that information anyway. If not, they're going to be very much trying to data mine it, or they're going to be getting inaccurate numbers and assume things, and then of course the balance discussion gets all muddied as a result of the fact that people have false information. Give it all to them from the start and wonderful things might end up happening. So I think that transparency should be there, and people love to min-max, people love to twiddle, people love to screw around with statistics, so the more that you give to the player, the better that will be, and the more enjoyment that a certain subset of the player base will actually derive from that particular title. Here's one from TR Mike 1 that says, please explain why companies use region blocking in gaming. Pirates will get their game no matter what, but the others can't. Right, well, region blocking is a bit of a problem, but it's also a little bit of a fossil. It's a relic from a bygone age. The reason that this exists is because brick-and-mortar stores like to release games and media at a certain time. Now, when it comes to the UK, that time is on a Friday. The UK stores specifically believe that Friday is the best time to release games because it is at the start of the weekend. So you come off of work and you're like, yeah, cool, I'm going to buy a new game to play over the weekend. And that's, of course, what happens with kids as well. They get their pocket money at the end of the school week to go out and buy the games, and then they play them over the weekend. So there is method in the madness. If you want to get super conspiratorial, you could even think that employers might actually support this because games coming out on a Tuesday might result in more leaves of absence in order to play certain games. However, that doesn't seem to stop games like World of Warcraft releasing in the middle of the week, nor does it stop America from releasing their games on a Tuesday. So you've got this big difference between the UK, Europe, who generally releases either on a Thursday or Friday, and the US that releases on a Tuesday. And from what I've been told by retailers, this is supposed to be because Tuesday is the slowest day of the week, so that is a time that they want to stimulate with new releases in order to even out the sales over the course of the week. That's the only explanation that I could possibly find. There may be another one, but I don't know where it is, and I can't find it anywhere online, nor by asking actual retail managers. Now, the region block on the digital products exists because brick-and-mortar stores put pressure on both the publisher and, of course, the e-tailers, as it were, particularly with Valve. Valve's in a really awkward spot because they've got games they need to sell. They release games on console, and if brick-and-mortar suddenly stop selling them, then they're kind of in a terrible spot. Brick-and-mortars are also able to apply pricing pressure, so Steam could be a lot cheaper, at least on launch, than any brick-and-mortar could, because of course no distribution and things like that. You don't have to worry about physical marketing or anything along those lines. And no, it doesn't cost a lot to make a case and a DVD, but there are more middlemen in the process. Distribution is a big factor, so it does cost a little bit more. And the problem is that brick-and-mortars want the status quo to remain. If stuff became cheaper online all the time, then people just wouldn't bother with it. If it became significantly cheaper, the brick-and-mortar PC market is already shrinking, and this is half due to brick-and-mortars themselves. They refuse to actually stock PC games, and secondly because people are buying games online a lot more now. And this will eventually happen with consoles. I think brick-and-mortars are well aware that their time is limited, and that eventually they will be relegated to selling retro stuff, and of course to selling peripherals and actual console hardware and things like that. So they're trying to make the most of it by gritting their teeth and hanging on as much as possible and putting a lot of pressure, because what they can do, since they are still quite relevant when it comes to console releases, they can turn around and say, we will not stock your game if you do not give in to our demands. And places like Walmart, places like GameStop, and of course game and European retailers still have that power. They will eventually lose it, and what we will then see, I imagine, is region blocking removed when it comes to the whole different days of release. Now, if you're talking about region blocking when it comes to preventing certain regions from actually playing certain games, well, that's a whole different can of worms, and quite frankly, another subject for another time, and it is a very, very complicated one indeed. What I will say is that region blocking is not all that common at this stage. What is more common is regional tiered pricing, which is an entirely different thing. There are only a limited number of countries that really have a problem with region blocking, as in the game can't be sold here, and that's more due to government bans. There are problems in Australia and there are problems in Germany specifically. Those are the two biggest examples there. But I wouldn't exactly call that region blocking. That's more local legislation causing products to be banned and removed from the shelves. And one final question before I wrap things up. What would you consider to be a good Let's Play? I consider a good Let's Play to be a Let's Play that adheres to the kind of principles that the original Let's Play stuff on Something Awful did. There is no rigid code of Let's Plays. Let's be honest, you're just playing video games for people on the internet. It's not serious business. But there are certain minimum quality standards, and when it comes to presenting the content, you have to wonder, well, is it me I'm presenting, or is it the game? Because if it's you, stop. You're doing it wrong. What you should be doing is presenting the game, and you should be adding to the experience. So, most of the time, really good Let's Plays are done by people that already know the game inside out. There's a reason why Chugga Conroy is so popular. He knows Nintendo games. Good God, does he know Nintendo games. He can show off everything when it comes to that kind of stuff. And then you could look at a bunch of these Something Awful Let's Players that come along and play games that they know a lot of. The playthrough of God Hand by Kung Fu Jesus is a really, really good example of this. He knew the game inside out, and he could play it to a very high level, which is entertaining. It's not that entertaining to see people fail over and over and over again at God Hand. That's just not interesting. It's especially not interesting when the guy doesn't know anything about the game, is most likely just going to get frustrated and get all ragey, and some people really like that. But then again, a lot of people also watch terrible reality TV shows. They like to see people suffer. It's just a little bit of schadenfreude. People find it cathartic in their daily lives. What I want to see from a Let's Play is someone present a game and genuinely do so in such a way that I feel entertained and informed. Like, if they're going to show me a cool game that I've never seen before, I want you to tell me about all the secrets. Why is this game cool? Why was it overlooked? Show me what is awesome about it. Play it really well. Show me all the little tricks and these little things which are hidden within the games, because there's so much within an awful lot of games that is never really experienced by the average player. I want a more than average player to play this game. So, no doubt, I think within everyone there's probably one good Let's Play. It's a game that they have played so much that they know it inside out. They have a special affinity, a special passion for that game, and they want to share that passion for the game with the world. They don't just simply sit down and say, I'm going to play this game through because it's popular, and I'm going to make funny faces, and I'm going to make funny voices, and there's going to be a face cam in the corner, and I am going to crack jokes and do general commentary and talk over cutscenes and crap like that. That isn't a good Let's Play to me. A good Let's Play is a game that the Let's Player is incredibly passionate and knowledgeable about and can create something wonderful. Of course, there are other kinds of Let's Play which are also pretty good. Riff on Let's Plays, for instance, when the games are really, really bad and the sole purpose is to actually riff on and do kind of a comedy roast of that game. That format works too to some degree, and there are plenty of very bad games that you can actually do that on, and that's okay. And I'll even say that games like Slender are pretty much designed in such a way that the only way you can do Slender properly is to do a live Scarecam Let's Play. But those games are pretty few and far between, and it just seems like a hell of a lot of games are being approached in that way these days, and I really do not like it. Okay, folks, that is me done for the day. A special Twitter mailbox. Thank you very much for those who sent me in tweets over to twitter.com/TotalBiscuit. My name has been TotalBiscuit, and I shall see you next time.